Hello everyone, I'm Kris and I'm back with another 3 collector challenge, and today to help me put together the 3 watch collection is Brendan and Duncan back in the studio. Welcome, gentlemen.
Well, thanks. It's good to be back. Thanks for having us back.
Yeah, great to be here again.
Do you have a set number of watches that you're aiming for, or is there no limit to the potential size of your collection?
I don't have a set number or limit, so I just buy watches I like. The number is going to be the number.
As Flip said it's a hoard.
Yeah, it probably is. I think that's a good way to describe it. I sort of say a true collector probably sells watches to fund others. I typically don't sell. In fact, I've never sold a watch. So whether that makes me a true collector or probably more a hoarder, as Flip said, is probably the right way.
That's unnatural.
But yeah, so for me, there's probably not a set number or even a desired or perfect number for a watch size. But that's just me.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, this, because we were chatting a bit before we came on, and I don't think there is a particular sweet spot per se for a watch collection, but I've found for me sort of 6 to 8 is where I've sort of been, and I have sort of, unlike Brendan, I've traded in and traded out to sort of keep it around that number, and that's, there's some things that I like that I have to reapportion, some funds. I haven't got limitless cash, so if some come in, others have to go out. So it's been, the size of that collection has been a victim of circumstance in some ways. But I think as I've progressed as well a little bit, I've sort of tried to sort of consolidate a little bit, just focus in a little bit on what I like. But it has taken a significant period of time to have watches in and out and in and out to kind of get to a place where you feel, okay, I'm pretty happy with this. There's not like a definitive, as collectors, we have this sort of number. So
much goes into getting one watch these days. It's as you say, it's finances, it's availability, it's what you just what you like. And all those things have got to come together at once before you can even really consider that purchase.
Yeah.
I think also is having the patience a little bit to sit on the watches that you have, and I've certainly been guilty, I think, of getting watches in because for one reason or another you sort of see them, you think, I really want to try and experience that watch, but they're not sitting on it for long enough, really not giving it long enough to really let that, you get some watches that are sort of a bit of a slow release, you need to keep wearing them before they sort of release all their charm, or you really get to sort of enjoy that watch. And I think I've been a bit guilty of just impatient. Is what it is basically.
I actually find having a bit of a reasonably larger collection that I like wearing all the watches, but you can't wear them all the time. So you might go a couple of months or something without wearing a watch, and then when you do wear it again, it's like you remember why you bought it, you remember why you fell in love with it in the first place, and it becomes, you get that enjoyment all over again. So
you feel guilty not wearing a certain watch?
No, not really. I don't feel guilty for not wearing it for a while. I'd feel guilty if I never wore it, because it's a watch that's made to be worn. I do wear all my watches, but I can go a reasonably long period of time without wearing one. Then it's always good to put it back on.
You told me you go home before and you've worn a watch all day, and then you go home and you'll put another watch on.
I do.
And that's because you have a home watch.
Yeah. I do that nearly every day. So I'll wear maybe a little bit more dressy watch. When I go home, I'll typically take that dress watch off and put a more casual, sporty watch on. So I do normally wear 2 watches every day. Okay, yes.
All right. Tell us about this watch.
So this is the Vacheron Constantin Ultrafine 1955. It's a part of their Historiques collection. So it was on the catalogue between 2010 and 2019, I think. This watch won't be for everyone, but to me, this is a pretty special watch. It's just so nice.
The thinness of that is just incredible. I mean, I'm looking at it from this angle. Yeah. It's just incredible, right?
So this, as the name would suggest, this is based on a watch they released in 1955. And the watch they released in 1955 was to mark their 200th anniversary. So 200 years old in 1955. So they've been around a long time making very nice watches.
Yeah.
So from the front, it's 36 mil, and from the front, it's just a very traditional and classic looking men's dress watch. Sort of that silvered opaline dial, which in natural light is just gorgeous. Simple batten hands and hour markers, and just sort of very little text, just Vacheron Constantin and the Maltese cross logo. And
This is just the definition of a dress watch.
absolutely perfect. Yeah.
Two hands,
Yeah. Two hands.
slim,
Yeah, absolutely.
precious metal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the original one of these was actually small. It was 32 mil, but the lugs on it had a certain style to it, almost horn-like. And these aren't the same, but they do have a very sharp finish, which is
Right.
inspired by the original one. They're very almost pointy and sharp. They've got razor finish on them nearly. So
Was it Vacheron that did the Chronograph?
Yeah, yeah. So that's a 1955 as well.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So 1955 Chronograph is still in the catalog, but
It is, yeah.
Chronograph.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, like some of that.
And it's got the typical Vacheron features. It's got like the Maltese cross built into the clasp. It's got the Maltese cross on the crown and on the dial. 4.1 millimeters thick.
That's amazing.
It is.
Amazing, right?
It is. And so the weight, there's almost nothing to it. But when you put it on, it's strangely satisfying. When you put it on, it feels very comfortable, and there's no heft or weight to it, but it feels lovely on it, and it really does. But what to me makes this watch really special is the movement. The plates and bridges are 18 karat gold. The finishing to it is just superb, all hand finished and hand decorated, so on. It's
Geneva seal.
Geneva seal, so it's Geneva seal on both the movement and the case. There's just so much to admire about it, and to be perfectly honest, to really appreciate it, you need one of these, and because it is so fine. And when you start having a good look, the engraving, the beveling, just the screws and how small they are.
How thin would that movement be? I mean, the whole watch is movement and case to 4.1, so the movement must be, I mean,
It's
couple of mil?
It's 1.64 mil.
It's 1.6.
Yeah, when they made it, it was the thinnest movement in the world, and it was the thinnest watch in the world, I think. I think Piaget have made one fractionally.
Piaget had, yeah.
But I think how they did it is you don't get a full dial on the Piaget. They've made it only like a quarter of the size, and they've sunk it into the movement a little bit. Right. So that's how they got their watch a little bit thinner. But
I think there's a big difference between these new ultra thin watches and thinness competition between Bulgari and Richard Mille and Piaget that they don't really look like watches. Maybe the Piaget does mostly, but this
does. This is
a dress watch.
This is very traditional, classic looking men's dress watch. Yeah, I can just look at the back of it, all tip for hours. It is so nice. Yeah. Have a little look. And give it a wind, so you feel that wind action.
If you were to put together a 3-watch collection now with all your knowledge and 8 years of experience behind you, so would you plan it out ahead of time?
If I was putting a 3-watch collection together, I probably would. I would certainly the type of watches. So I would have a dress watch and probably 2 sports watches. Probably going to be a GMT or a dual time and a chronograph. So when I actually did my individual 3-watch collection, that's exactly what I had. Yeah. And I think the makeup of that is a great 3-watch collection. So dress, chronograph, GMT or dual time or something like that. The individual watches to fit those categories would take a bit of research and, what's my budget? Am I going as high a horology as I can? That sort of thing. That would take the research to actually pick out the pieces.
All right, so let's look at the next one. Let's look at the complication.
Okay. Well, not that complicated, but beautiful, I think. So this is an IWC 3706. This particular one's a 2003, but I think it was produced from probably early 90s. This would have been a later run, so I think it went through to about 2008 at a pinch. I'm not entirely sure. Doesn't matter. This is a later reference. So a lot of the examples of this watch that you would see would be tritium dial. It would be earlier run. When I was actually trying to source this watch, I actually wanted the non-tritium dial, which this one is. So it's a little bit more contrasty for me. It's a bit more sort of white on black, which I quite like. But one of the unique things about this particular IWC is this is from an era before they started upsizing the cases. They've gone to 41 for these. In fact, they've dropped it back to 41. It was 44 for a long time for these chronographs. But this is 39. And for me, that's the sweet spot in watches. I think if I have to just stick with just one case size, 39. I had a 39mm Explorer for quite a while, and that watch is, from a sizing point of view, perfect. It's IWC at its best, I think. It's got the sawn-off hour hand, which is sort of reminiscent of the very early Mark 11s, I think, Mark 12s perhaps, which I also quite like as a design feature. And now obviously with modern IWC, they've gone to those sword hands, which not as much of a fan of. Not too much more to say about it. I'm a fan of Pilot's watches. I obviously have an IWC 46 Big Pilot in the collection as well, which is obviously not as wearable as this. It's actually the only chronograph I have in my collection. I don't collect chronographs. I'm not a huge chronograph guy, mainly because I don't use them and they don't really serve a function for me, other than I think they look great, but they don't serve a particular purpose. I like a GMT, which I do actually find quite useful. Like every other IWC Pilot's watch, it's incredibly legible. Everything's sort of beautifully laid out, easy where it should be. It's got this particular one's got a day date. I'm actually a fan of dates on watches. I find them very useful in my day to day. I have a very soft spot for Zenith. Zenith is another brand I absolutely love. For me, that's the only other chronograph. I've harped on numerous times to people in the group, yourself, Brendan, that I should probably own a Daytona. I don't think it's going to happen, to be honest. There's other chronographs which are just a little bit more interesting to me. This is one. The Zenith is another. The El Primero movement to me is fabulous. It's the world's first automatic chronograph. But yeah, I mean, you couldn't get a more contrasting watch to
to the one which is
in Vacheron, could you? Really? It's cool. I mean, it's a cool watch.
And that's sort of kind of what you want in a collection.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it
contrast.
Why have three watches that are all the same?
Yeah, quite. Yeah,
you would just have one then.
Yeah.
Have a look.
Absolutely. Yeah, please.
What is it about chronographs? Because, like you said, no one uses them.
No, I think it just becomes a style of watch. I mean, a lot of people have dive watches but don't go diving. So it's a function you don't use. But I think as much as anything, it's a style or a look that you like. I do like the look of chronographs. I like the buttons and the subdials and so on. But I do like the size of this. I think this is great. I mean, 39 mil, so it's really wearable for a lot of people. And for a watch of this size, as you say, it's a chronograph with a day and a date. So there's a lot going on.
It's not super sized. The new IWCs are quite chunky,
Exactly, yeah. And some of the new ones are a bit big for me because they've come back down to 41, but the 44s, which is too big for me, so something I've never really considered because they just don't work for me. But that's not to say that I don't like the look of IWCs. I love them. I think they look great. But for so long, they were just not suitable.
It's got actually on the crown. It's got the original fish crown, which is supposed to give it some element of waterproofing. It's always to identify that it is waterproof to 100 meters, maybe. I wouldn't go anywhere near water personally with this, but
that's waterproof to 30 bar.
Yeah, you're not doing the washing up in that, are you?
No, exactly. But and the other thing too is with 3 subdials a day and a date, there's a fair bit going on, but it's not an overly busy looking or complicated looking dial, which I actually like. It's still got a relatively simple look about it. You see some watches with very complicated and busy dials, you look at it and go, what time is it?
Yeah.
So I actually, irrespective of whether a watch is complicated or simple, I still like a simple looking dial.
I'll tell you a quick story about it.
Lovely.
So a few weeks ago, I was resetting the time. The day and the date got stuck sort of halfway between, and I couldn't budge them. And I was like, I think something might happen to this movement. And they were completely stuck. And the more I was sort of cycling through the time, it wouldn't tick over.
Yeah.
It was completely stuck on the day and the date. So I started Googling frantically. I was like going on Google trying to see if I had the same issue. And somebody put, if you change the date, or if you mess around with it between whatever the hours are, like 11 p.m. and 2 a.m., then good luck to you. Your watch is probably finished. And so I was like really worried that I'd done that. But anyway, I advanced it through again and made sure I was well clear of that sort of danger zone. And then I pulled it out and tried to reset it, and it did. It moved into so I got the date and the day to move at least into it wasn't correct, but I got it at least in the window. Then I pulled it out and carried on advancing it manually. Took quite a bit to go through all the days, and it started to click over again. And I was suddenly like, oh, thank goodness. Like I haven't completely broken it, but I'd obviously fiddled with it and made changes in that sort of danger zone period. So I was lucky. So I think was pretty close to pretty stuffing it. Unfortunately, it's always the risk because I don't wear it every day. And so I pick it back up and I don't really think. Like my other watches, I just go to advance it. But you do have to be quite careful with these.
Really, actually. And when it comes to chronograph is a very complicated.
Yeah, it's more complicated than people think. Yeah, it's not, complications aren't just perpetual calendars or something like that. There's a lot of moving parts that go into a chronograph.
We put some thought into planning out this collection, but like when you purchase a new watch, how much thought goes into that one? You spend months, years contemplating it, or do you just walk in, try stuff on, watches on wonders, see what comes out? Is it more impulsive?
Over the years, I've done all of those things. I've impulse buy, I've targeted and saved and waited. I've done all those things. Cheaper, more entry-level watches can be a little bit more impulsive from time to time, or you know, you might see something, they watches and wonders, you see a new release from a brand that you might know and like, and you might instantly have, oh, geez, that's nice, I'd like one of those. And then you can almost decide instantly on seeing it, but then it can still be a bit of a wait before they actually are available in an AD. More expensive pieces, you have to save up, expressions of interest, wait, be patient, all those things.
For me, definitely impulsive. At the beginning, like yourself, at the beginning of watch collecting, I wanted a collection like that. Yeah, I wanted the diver, the chronograph, the GMT, the dress watch, whatever buckets you want to fit sort of watches into, and I want that collection as quickly as possible. Now it's completely different. Now the way I look at watches is I take a lot more thought and time. So I sort of, if I have a watch in my mind that I want to get, or that I really sort of, I either get caught up in the hype, or I see it, or there's a watch that I just really would love to have as part of my collection, I sit on it for about 3 months. There is an element here of some watches that are discontinued in ex-catalogue that you see at a great price, and if you don't move quickly, it's gone. And I've been there as well. And then, so there is an element of that. It's like you see a watch that is in that condition, that year, full set, great price, doesn't come up very often. You feel like, oh, I really should move on that. And if it doesn't click, if I don't love it, then yes, I can always put it back up for sale again. That's happened to me a few times. But generally, if there's a watch that I like that is accessible, I will sit in it now for a good few months.
And you do consider discontinued pieces, not just the ones at the boutique?
I do. Yeah, I find a great deal of interest in discontinued pieces. Well, I mean, the IWC is a classic example. 90% of my own collection would be all discontinued. You can't buy them. You can't buy them anymore.
What makes you want to get a discontinued watch?
I sort of look at watches in their entirety, like everything that's current catalogue, ex-catalogue, vintage is a whole other world. Like I haven't ventured too far into that space. I kind of look at everything and work out first and foremost what I love, what's comfortable on the wrist, what works for me, what I think is beautiful, and what I love.
Have you bought anything off catalogue?
No, to me, I think there's probably enough on catalogue watches that I'm interested in. So no, that's not the way I've sort of put my collection together. Funnily, because I never sell anything, quite a few of my collection now is off catalogue, or they're discontinued or been replaced with a more modern thing. So I have a number of watches, one right there actually. That's a bit more special when you can go and have that relationship with the brand as well, I think.
Yeah, for me, actually, this was the first watch that I bought that was discontinued at the time.
Yeah.
When I got it, I thought that I've been collecting long enough, get into vintage. Maybe I should. And I gave it some thought, a few months of research, vintage. Yeah, that's a collecting thing. But then I figured out it wasn't for me. Yeah, really, vintage, because I just like to wear them. I came up with this idea, okay, neo vintage or close to that. That should be the way. And the one brand that you can trust, even back in the 90s, to be sturdy enough is Rolex. Yeah, obviously. Yeah. So then I looked into what I liked. This is the 16710 GMT-Master 2 with a Pepsi bezel, and I thought, okay, so this I could get behind. Not as well made as the new ones, especially when it comes to the bracelet, but it just wears so nice on my wrist. It's supposed to be the same size, right? 40 millimeter case, but it's not. It's only 12 millimeters thick.
It's more like a 39 almost, isn't it? Yeah. It's small. It does feel smaller. Yeah.
I've put it on. It just feels much smaller than the new one. I know you have the new one.
The one I've got's discontinued as well. That's the ceramic, or the all black. That's discontinued as well. But the GMT is a great watch. Whether you got an older one or a newer one, I think they're a great watch.
Yeah, and I considered a few Rolexes from back in the day. I went back into the 90s, but this one, I kind of like the color, the pop-up color, a nice usable complication.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's still a Rolex, still oyster case, still water resistant.
Yeah,
And to be fair, I'm not a fan of this bracelet. So I went with a later model, 2005, because it's solid end link.
Yeah.
Okay.
No host case, so it's a bit, closer to what currently is available. But it still just doesn't feel that good on the wrist. When you're used to the modern Rolex bracelets, they're just so well made.
Yeah, they are. They're good, aren't they?
And this is before the time when Rolex caught up with Omega, glass wise especially.
Yeah.
I did put it back on just for this 3-watch collection, because you do want to watch on a bracelet, don't you?
Yeah.
In a 3-watch collection.
Yeah, I think it's more so. And a Rolex as well, an Oyster bracelet is, I think
they are. They are. Yeah, certainly the modern ones are superb. They really are.
Yeah, but I'm weird that way that I wear this on the strap most of the time.
Yeah.
And I do.
Nice.
Do swap around straps. Yeah. But when we talked about this collection, it's all off catalog, 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
I thought this would be a great fit for this collection.
Yeah. I think just the type of watches, dress, chronograph, GMT, chopped done.
Yeah.
That was exactly your collection.
It was, yeah. So when I did my other video and bought in 3 watches, it was exactly that.
I think the neo vintage is a great era, right? Because you get sort of a bit of the history and you get a bit of the character and charm of the older models with elements of modern watchmaking. Solid end links, right? Knowles case.
The thing with Rolex is too, like, they have an iconic look. You could an old one or a new one, that's a Rolex GMT. Or a Saab or a Daytona, instantly at a glance. Doesn't matter whether it's modern, a few years old, or vintage. Some of these reissues or these homage watches actually introduce people to the world of vintage. Say, for example, the 222 Vacheron. A lot of people have bought the new one and then gone and bought the original. So it's taken them down that path. Whereas if they didn't remake it, they would never have probably ever known about the watch.
I noticed that brands re-release these watches after they become popular on the secondary market.
Right, okay.
Like the Cartier Tortue recently re-released. It was like languishing for years.
Yeah.
And then last few years it popped up in price.
Okay.
And now they just released it. Okay.
That's interesting.
People want it.
So they're keeping an eye on what's popular in the secondary market and seeing, people are interested. Okay, it's interesting. Here I was, my cynical viewpoint on that was that they just lack creativity.
No, I think
they would go to their back catalogue to make re-releases and re-releases of watches because it's easier to sort of recreate and revive than it is to innovate.
Oh, they just like money.
Yeah.
Yes, and why? The commercial machine, yeah.
Well, there's also a risk too that if a brand comes up with sort of a new watch, it's a bit different to what they've currently done. People say, "Oh, that's not really a." Patek, when they made a watch that looked like a Zenith, they go, that's not a Patek,
Yeah, okay. If they sort of diverge too far away from their brand identity.
Correct, yeah. It's not something that's associated with that brand, and a lot of the fans get turned off by that, so they kind of have to stick with the Porsche 911 model.
Which is what Rolex does so well, right? I mean, they don't really stray too far from the formula. No, they just make very, very, very subtle. I mean, what the modern sub is just literally a tweak to the lug width and the actual size of the lugs and the case diameter, but that's barely noticeable. Yeah. And they go, "Hey, we've got a new watch." Oh, have you really?
Yeah, it's just an upgrade. It's just an upgrade of the old one,
Yeah,
it's just exactly the old one, but it's still but yeah.
Even when they came up with the Yacht-Master, it was supposed to be a sub, but they just didn't want to risk it.
Right.
To change the sub up, so they released it as a separate collection, the Yacht-Master.
Yeah.
There is something to be said about that, though, right? There is definitely something to be said about,
Don't stray too far, yeah.
Exactly.
Just stick to your core business. What's your core business and stick to it.
Yeah.
Just do it well. So you don't have to be all things to all people. Do a couple of things well. Just do a couple of things that are your core business and do that well.
And so I was thinking that you've been sitting on this watch for quite some time, and you have never sold a watch.
Yeah.
Yes, so keep acquiring new ones.
Yeah.
So
2013, I've got that. So it's a while ago. Yeah.
What is the number in your collection though? No, I don't think I even know that. How many have you got?
What do you reckon?
Do you know?
I do. Yeah.
You do? Okay.
30.
And you?
That's a good guess. I was going to say close to that. I will say. I'll say slightly more. I'll say 35.
28.
Okay, yeah.
Good guess.
Yeah,
It'll be 30 soon. Eh?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
okay.
Do you prefer to own a watch long term or the experience of getting a new one?
Good question. I don't know. There's always joy in getting a new one, but I do enjoy owning them. I wear some more than others, but I do wear them all, and it's good to get a watch out that you haven't worn for a little while. I love getting a new watch, and I love owning them, so it's hard. I don't know.
Yeah, I have a lot of sentimentality in watches. There's some in my collection that will never leave for sentimental reasons because there's a great deal of meaning behind those. But I quite like the chase of it. I think if I'm honest with myself, that's what I quite enjoy. I like the research and like looking for watches and the idea of like potentially saving up for one and pining after a particular watch and then acquiring it. More often than not, that feeling often subsides, which I think has led to me then
probably why you move them
selling watches. Yeah, which
move on to the next one.
Yeah, and I quite like getting caught up in that process, but it's financially not smart.
No, it's it's an expensive hobby.
Yeah,
it's an expensive.
It's not a very smart thing to do. So
it's probably more expensive when you keep going in and out of the watch. I think it's worse when you go in and out of watches. I think it's worse.
Oh, completely, because as much as we like to think of these as investments, they're not. Your money is way better off in other places than they are in watches.
Of course, yeah.
So they're not that. So you have to go in with some trepidation and a little bit more thought. And I've been quite flippant on some occasions. There are some that I do really enjoy. I get like I wear them and I look down on them and I don't even know the time. I sort of look at my watch and then I look again. I'm like, I didn't even look at the time that occasion. So
I know the feeling.
Yeah, I thought I was the only one. I'm glad I'm not.
Oh, I do it all the time. I would say that multiple times a day. I look at my watch and then I'm like, oh, what was the time? Because I just get so caught up in it. And there are watches I have that are like that I just love, and I wear them. I put them on and I just get an immediate amount of joy from them. And then that that's a watch that won't get moved on or doesn't. And then there's some that you just.
But do you go into every purchase thinking that, this is a keeper and I'm going to have it forever? Or do you think that, okay, I'm going to experience it for a while and then just move on?
Yeah, that.
You know up front that this is not going to last?
On some occasions, yeah. On some occasions. Because I want to experience that watch because I can't. And I've been fortunate in the past to be able to do that and move it on without losing the shirt off my back. I've been able to do that. I certainly wouldn't recommend people adopt that approach now. Like it's not smart, but you only get so long with a watch in a dealer, for example. So you don't get to really experience it. You don't know what it's like with your other clothes. You don't know what it's like day to day. You don't know how wearable it is. You can't see it outside of, lighting environments in the shop. So there have been occasions where I've bought a watch and thought, yeah, I want to give this a run.
Have you ever bought a watch that you thought I might want to give it that run that you talk about with the expectation that you probably will at some point move it on, but then it just worked better and you've ended up...
Oh, you mean the reverse?
Yeah. Have you ever had the reverse of that?
Yeah, actually, yeah, there has. There have been a couple. There have been a couple like that where I have... In fact, the Explorer was that. The Rolex Explorer 39mm, I had the Mark 1, which was the
shorthand.
Yep. That and actually the Explorer 2. Those are two watches that the Explorer one I had for quite a long time. Actually, I had that quite early on, and I had that for quite a long time. And that watch I bought thinking I kind of got caught up, and I was kind of at that point thinking, I just want to try and see if I can just have like a small collection or one or two watches. And the Explorer fits that so perfectly. That is a watch that sort of you wear, and it seems quite boring in a way almost, but that one had something about it that had a bit of character. That particular one, I'm not sure about the 40mm one. I'm not particularly sure about the Mark II 39, and I'm even convinced that much by the older ones. The 36s never really did much for it, but that one, that Mark 139, it had enough in that watch that kept it interesting, and it got more interesting over time. I love the white gold numerals. I love the fact that the hands was like slightly shorter. Mistake or not by Rolex, it doesn't matter. I highly doubt it. Rolex they tend not to make mistakes.
They made a mistake, they would rectify it pretty quickly, and the few that did get out there would now be collector's pieces.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That one was one I wasn't expecting to keep. I had it for a long time. I got rid of it in the end because I had opportunity for something else. And like I said before, I wasn't in a financial position at that point to be able to just have more in. Something had to give. That was just the way it was. So that one had to go. But that's a fabulous watch. And if I could get it back at some point or could afford to have it back, I would. And the Explorer 2 was the other one. And that was different. That was the reverse. That I just didn't give it long enough. And that's a regretful sale for me, that Explorer 2.
If I was starting again, would, the 28 watches I buy from this point on be exactly the same? Probably not. There's one or two watches that I've got that are probably a little big for me. I still kind of love them anyway because they're a bit different, bit interesting, unique. If I had a much smaller collection, there's some that would certainly not be in it. I've got a Black Bay bronze, which is 43 mil, which I actually just love the look of the bronze and the slate dial, and the new butt leather strap on it is really, really nice and comfortable. But the watch is a fraction big for me, but it suits an occasional wear. So I don't regret buying it, but it's probably not a watch that really suits me.
If you had to sell one, if we had to force you, I know you don't like to, it would break your tradition of not selling a watch, but so if we had to force your hand now and go, you have to sell one watch in your collection, which one is it?
It would probably be a Oris Raid chronograph. Again, because it's probably 43, 44 mil. It's a bit big, probably my least worn watch. And it was an impulse buy. I was in Melbourne at the Hourglass 10 years ago or something when they had Oris. I don't think they have Oris now, and it was 40% off. It went down from $4,000 to $2,400.
Oh, you can't say no.
So, if you force me to sell something, that would be the one.
That would be the one?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you started from scratch now, it would be a different 28. How much did your taste change during your collecting journey?
I don't think the tastes have changed that much, if I'm honest. But I probably came later years in collecting to some more high horology stuff. There was a time where I thought I probably would never have bought something like that. So obviously if you're starting it again, but still with the same knowledge that I have, well, I might not buy 28 watches, I might buy less, but the value of the collection might still be the same.
Is that because your taste changed though, or is that because you went past that barrier that this is how much I would spend on a watch, I wouldn't spend more than that?
Probably that barrier, but it's also the knowledge about some of those higher end pieces and why they cost a lot, what goes into making them. It's the understanding of, I guess, the watch industry and the process.
Have you noticed a change in your taste?
A little bit, but I've always bought watches. I mean, my very first watch I bought purely on an aesthetic basis. So I think latterly after that, there was a period where I did get caught up a little bit in the hype, but I've always tried to buy watches that I just love the look of. And the first watch that I bought was you guys know, it was the Aquanaut. Yeah. And that watch was not hyped at the time. In fact, it wasn't selling. People didn't want it. But I didn't buy it through any sort of pretense. I bought that watch because I just walked in and I was like that. I just love that watch. It's just awesome. It's just like that. As I put it on, I was like, it's incredibly comfortable. It disappears. It's thin. It's light. I wasn't a watch hobbyist at that point. I just wanted a keepsake, essentially, to remember my father by. So that was it. And 6 years, I had that watch. It went for everything. And then I went through a period of time where, yes, I did then, I think, get caught up in various pieces that I felt I probably should have, a bit like yourself. I sort of tried to amass a collection and sort of shoehorn pieces in to a collection, which wasn't quite right. And then I went through that for a period of time, but now I've sort of reverted back, and now I'm attracted to pieces that are a bit sort of left of center. I mean, he says with an IWC, but whatever. But I do like a little bit. I mean, that's still unique and different enough, because there aren't many of the IWCs I wanted, particularly the sawn off hand. The Aquanaut's actually even more appealing to me now because they don't make it with that slightly greenish hue lume. They've got rid of that. It's now a really white lume if you look at the new 5167s. So they don't. So mine's got that sort of slightly greenish, off white hue. just another sort of layer that's become a little bit more interesting.
I remember my first good watch was Omega, and I thought Omega was at the time was probably as good a brand as I'll ever get. And I thought, that'd be the sort of the top end. And I remember you talk about the threshold of paying a certain price. One of the reasons I went for the Omega is at the time I thought, how much for a Rolex?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could never imagine buying a Rolex and spending that much money.
You get desensitized.
Oh, not really. I'm sure plenty of people do, and you're probably $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, not 30 and 40,000, because they're still an effort to, they're an effort to acquire. So you don't.
And then again, if you add up 28 watches, that's a very nice Patek right there.
Well, that's a good question. We were talking about that like just before, weren't we? Like,
yeah.
Would you consolidate? Would you lay all the 28 out and go, that's the value? Let's divide that by either 2 or 1, 2, 3, however many you choose.
If I were to consolidate down to 3 or 6 or whatever, let's say 3, because that's what we're doing today, I would want them to be 3 very special watches. So I'd probably keep the value
the same,
okay, and get the 3 best watches that my 28 watches could fund and that I had an interest in. So for example, I think I might look at the 222.
You selling?
No.
I was going to say.
But that's the scenario. On one hand, I might be a little bit conscious about wearing a full gold, so. But yeah, I would want 3 very, very special watches if I was going to get rid of.
Special in the sense of special to you, or special within the community and within the history of watchmaking?
To me, but maybe end up being both. But to me, it would have to be, as you guys know, I've got 2 Vacherons. I'd like a third. I'd like an overseas. But I was lucky enough to go to the factory. So so as a brand, that's a bit special to me over its competitors.
So it's
okay.
VC over Patek for you?
For me, yeah. I like. It's only
says the Patek guy.
We diverge on that.
Yeah, only because I've been to the factory and it's a bit more personal to me. Would I say that I think Vacheron are better than Patek or vice versa? Not really. I mean, they're both brands are very good watches, but I was lucky enough to go to the factory, so that just
that's a funny thing, because when you talk about watches, you can talk about specs and bezels and movements and hairsprings and it's anti-magnetic. At the end of the day, it's so personal and emotional, because these are antiquated technology, no matter what they put in it. So it really doesn't matter if it's a technically better hairspring. You're not going to choose one over the other, no respect.
I think it comes down ultimately to aesthetics and to wearability a little bit, right? Because if the watch is not comfortable and you're not wearing it, you wear all of yours, but you say that the ones that if you had to sell, it would be the ones that are slightly oversized, i.e. they're not that wearable for you. Certain watches that I have that are more comfortable than others, and those are the ones I wear. Those are the ones I wear more.
But do you only consider the watch itself or the brand as well? Because when we talk about Patek versus VC, the brand matters because you have a personal connection with the brand. It's not just, okay, I can have a Calatrava or the 1955. Yeah. I'd rather have the 1955 because there's a personal connection there.
For me, it's the brand. I've worked.
So brand is part of it.
Yeah, I've worked in marketing for over 20 years.
Yeah.
So for me, the brand is regardless of what you think, it's extremely important.
So it's not just how it wears, how it functions, brand.
When you're spending that kind of money, I think so. For me, the brand it enters the conversation.
Yeah, I think it has to. And that's not to say there's not some very high-end micro brands out there that people have never heard of. But yeah, when you're spending that sort of money, there has to be some sort of recognition.
I feel the same way about Rolex, because people tend to speak down on Rolex that it's too mainstream and boring or whatever. But I always feel like no matter the number of watches that I have in my collection, I always like to have at least one Rolex.
Yeah,
I think it's just such a significant brand, isn't it?
Well, incredibly important to watchmaking.
Yeah.
And so I think regardless of what you feel about them and potentially what they stand for now, whichever way you look at it from a horological point of view, they're incredibly important. And that's the way I feel about Patek. Same as VC.
Yeah, there's brands out there. They're incredibly
important for watchmaking, these watches, and they've built up a significant brand and a a significant catalogue of credible timepieces over a long history. Because you're buying the watch, yes, but you are also buying into the brand and the family at some level, I think. Yeah,
I always think when you do buy a watch, you're more than just buying a watch. There's some recognition of that brand, and within my collection, I actually do like to have at least 2 watches of all the brands that I have. I don't know why, I just do. So I think every brand I have,
except Tudor, you've gone well beyond.
I've got more than two, but I have at least 2 of every.
There's no upper limit, just
minimum 2. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. No upper limit, but a lower limit. You have to have 2.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think you're more than just like that watch. You like the company and the brand. Yeah.
You buy into the brand.
Correct. Yeah.
Do you?
I think I do. Yeah. Sometimes it's not the brand as in like a Rolex, because I do like independence. That way you're not buying into a brand name, you're buying into a watchmaker.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
But it's kind of the same thing.
So it's the same. Yeah, that's the business side of the company.
It's the same thing. So when I buy a Grunefeld, I buy it because what they do matters, and I'm impressed, and I love how they go about things. I also tend to like the watch.
Yeah.
But there's other watches I could have bought for the money.
Oh yeah. It's almost endless choice.
But again, what they represent, who they are, how they do things matters.
I think that's true of everything that we consume, right? We are caught up in some form of the marketing, right? You like the story, you like what they stand for, you like what they've done, you like the way the business presents itself. It's all important.